The asset. My job pays $20,000 a month. Tax-free. I'm a bodyguard. My mission is to protect Claire Sterling, the wife of a titan of industry. Then I discovered my boss, Julian Vance, is one of those real-life video game protagonists. And his next mission objective is to kill me. Chapter 1. I think your husband wants me dead. Leo, it's $20,000 a month, plus a full benefits package, health, dental, for a one kid. Your task is singular. Ensure my wife's absolute safety. Behind a massive obsidian desk, Julian Vance's voice had the kind of authority that didn't allow for questions. He was handsome, in that sharp, chiseled way you only see in movies, the jawline, the intense eyes, the whole 9 yards. I nodded, my face a mask of professional calm. Understood, Mr. Vance. Inside, though, a different thought echoed. Here we go. My name is Leo Cross, and I'm a dimension hopper. The world I landed in is a novel, something you'd find online titled The CEO's Shadow Guard, the Urban Warrior System. And the man in front of me, Mr. Vance, is the hero of that story. The unremarkable signet ring on his pinky finger is his cheat code, the protagonist's system. An hour ago, in the parking garage of his corporate tower, Julian was ambushed by assassins from a rival company. According to the original script, his system activated, and he dispatched them with an almost casual brutality. Now, fearing for his wife's safety, he's sparing no expense to hire the best bodyguard money can buy. That's me. I'm also the disposable side character who doesn't make it past chapter 30. The guy who gives the hero some XP, a few contacts, and then gets stepped on like a bug on his way to greatness. So, naturally I took the job. Julian stood and walked around the desk, clapping a hand on my shoulder. My wife's name is Claire. She doesn't like being followed. You need to learn to keep your distance. A faint, almost imperceptible electric tingle passed from his hand to my shoulder. Ding! Target detected. Leo Cross. Threat level assessment. High cannon fodder with fatal potential. New system mission issued. Eliminate this individual. Initial recommendation. Arrange an unfortunate accident. Make him disappear. A flicker of ice-cold, murderous intent flashed in Julian's eyes, but was gone in an instant, masked by a flawless performance of concern. He didn't know I could hear it. My own interdimensional travel package came with a cheap, knockoff bonus feature, a little bug that lets me listen in on other people's systems. I looked him in the eye and asked with practiced sincerity, Mr. Vance, are you sure you could trust me with this? Leaving Mrs. Sterling in my care, Julian's smile was all business. I believe in trusting my people. I got it. Let the cannon fodder do the work, then arrange for a workplace accident once the job is done. A true capitalist, very on brand. After leaving Julian's office, I went to the third-floor private lounge. This was where I would meet my principal, Claire Sterling. She was also Julian Vance's only weakness. A typical high-society wife, sheltered from the world by her husband's power, with an air of someone who's never had to pump her own gas. She was sitting on a white sofa, reading a book. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting a scene of quiet elegance. Mrs. Sterling, good morning. I'm your new bodyguard, Leo Cross. I stopped at a respectful 5-foot distance and gave a slight nod. She looked up. She was beautiful, more so than the book described. A cool, distant beauty. I don't need a bodyguard, she said, her voice as chilled as her demeanor. It was Mr. Vance's arrangement. You can go home. I'll make sure you're still paid. She looked back down at her book, a clear dismissal. This, too, was part of the script. My next move was supposed to be a brilliant, persuasive speech about my professionalism. I decided to improvise. I met her gaze directly, my voice even and calm. Mrs. Sterling, before I came up, your husband stressed one thing in particular. She didn't respond. I continued. He said I must guarantee your absolute safety, because someone might want to harm you. The page in her book stopped turning. I took half a step forward. So, I was thinking, maybe you already know something about that. She finally closed the book, her eyes narrowing with a sharp, analytical light. What are you trying to say? Nothing specific. I offered a harmless, professional smile, just making a logical deduction. After all, a standard kidnapping is for ransom. The target is usually kept alive. I paused, letting the silence hang in the air before delivering the final line. Unless the person who hired them wanted a fatality all along. Her pupils contracted slightly. I saw the flicker of understanding and said nothing more. The implication was clear enough for a woman as smart as her. Julian's enemies wanted to hurt her. But what if someone else wanted her to have an accident? Or, perhaps, wanted me to have one? After a long moment, she spoke again. Your name is Leo Cross? Yes, ma'am. Can you cook? The abrupt change in topic was a test, a sign of tentative acceptance. I can make a few simple things, I replied. Like what? Scrambled eggs, omelets, and French toast. She paused. So, basically, just breakfast for dinner? It's cheap and high in protein, I said with a straight face. And versatile. She seemed momentarily stumped by my logic. Then a small, almost invisible smile touched her lips. It was like a crack appearing in a glacier. You're interesting, she said. Thank you. You can stay, but you'll follow my rules. Of course. First, don't get too close to me. Second, do not interfere in my personal life. Third, she thought for a moment. I'll let you know when I think of it. Understood. Just then, Julian came down the stairs. He'd changed into a casual polo and slacks. When he saw Claire and me in what appeared to be a pleasant conversation, his brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. Ding! Alert! Host's wife, Claire Sterling, has developed a preliminary positive impression of the target, Leo Cross. Warning! Warning! The destined marriage is exhibiting signs of instability. System mandate updated. Within 3 days, you must publicly humiliate Leo Cross in front of Claire Sterling and have him fired. Julian's expression darkened. He strode over, wrapping an arm around Claire's waist in a clear display of ownership. Claire, honey, how are you getting along with our new security? Claire subtly extricated herself from his grasp. It's fine, she said coolly. He'll be in charge of my security from now on. Wonderful. Julian's gaze shifted to me, his eyes burning with a silent warning. Mr. Cross, remember your place. I nodded, my professional and harmless mask firmly in place. Don't worry, Mr. Vance. My code of conduct is simple. Maintain absolute physical distance and a purely professional relationship with the boss's wife. I said it loud enough for both of them to hear, every word crisp and clear. A faint blush crept up Claire's neck. Julian's face went black. Chapter 2. The subtext of shared meal. Night. The villa's sprawling, stainless steel kitchen. I was carrying out my first additional duty from Claire, making a late-night snack. I was mincing scallions, my knife worked steady and precise. What are you making? Claire's voice came from behind me. She had changed into a silk pajamas set, her long hair down, her feet bare against the cool marble floor. Ramen. More simple food. She sounded slightly disappointed. It's easy to digest at night, I said without turning. Good for you. I heard the soft padding of her feet as she walked up beside me. A light, clean fragrance, like expensive soap, drifted over. She watched the rhythmic tap of my knife. You're very skilled with that. I've had practice. Practicing what? Butchery. She was speechless again. The kind of butchery I was referring to, and the kind she was imagining, were clearly two different things. The ramen was ready in minutes. A rich broth, a few greens, a sprinkle of scallions, and a perfectly soft-boiled egg nestled on top. I slid the bowl across the island toward her. Here you go. She picked up the chopsticks and took a small, delicate bite. How is it? I asked. It's fine, she said, but her eating pace didn't slow. I leaned against the counter, watching her. The kitchen was quiet except for the faint sound of her eating. The silence was more powerful than any conversation. Halfway through, she paused and looked up at me. Aren't you having any? I'm not hungry. I can't finish all of this by myself, she said. It was an invitation, and another test. I grabbed a clean pair of chopsticks and sat down across from her. I'll help you out, then. Can't let it go to waste. Instead of taking some of the noodles from her bowl, I reached in and plucked out the perfect whole, soft-boiled egg. I ate in one bite. Claire froze. She probably hadn't expected me to be so direct, without even a hint of polite hesitation. Chewing, I spoke around a mouthful of egg. The egg is the soul of the ramen. The corner of her mouth twitched upwards, fighting a smile. Just then, a harsh voice shattered the peace. What the hell are you two doing? Julian stood in the doorway to the dining room, his face a thundercloud. He'd just gotten back from a business dinner, and the reek of whiskey rolled off him in waves. Ding! Host's wife detected sharing a late-night meal with the target. Intimacy level +10. Warning, host's infidelity index is rising. System punishment protocol initiated. Host will now experience angina pectoris for 3 minutes. Julian staggered, clutching his chest, a pained expression twisting his features. But his eyes remained locked on us, burning with fury. Claire's expression instantly turned to ice. "You've been drinking. I asked you what you're doing." Julian roared like a wounded animal. "Eating a snack," I said, wiping my mouth and standing up calmly. "Mrs. Sterling was hungry, so I made her some ramen. 1 bowl, for the 2 of you." Julian's venomous gaze darted between us and the single bowl on the counter. She couldn't finish it, so I helped out to avoid waste. I explained, my logic sound and irrefutable. "Would you like some, Mr. Vance? There's more in the pot. Get out, right away." I turned and walked out without a second thought, leaving the battlefield to the husband and wife. As I left, a furious argument erupted behind me. "Claire, what is the meaning of this?" In the kitchen with another man in the middle of the night. "Julian, would you stop being so ridiculous? He's my bodyguard." "Bodyguard? He looks more like your boy toy. You're being completely irrational." I leaned against the wall around the corner, listening quietly. These lines were straight out of the novel. Except, in the original version, the bodyguard was the one being wrongfully accused. This time, the accusation felt a little more real. The fight ended abruptly with Claire slamming her bedroom door. Julian was left standing alone, his chest heaving. Ding! Angina pectoris punishment complete. New system mission issued. The battle for dignity, mission objective. At tomorrow night's charity gala, publicly humiliate Leo Cross. Make him understand who Claire Sterling's one and only man is. Mission reward. Divine tier medical skills, beginner. Failure penalty. Permanent 50% reduction in a random bodily function. Listening to the voice in my head, I smiled. Here it comes, the classic plot point where the hero gets a new skill. The method was just a little dirty this time. I turned to head back to my room. As I passed Claire's bedroom, the door cracked open. "Leo," she called my name. I stopped. "Tomorrow, you'll accompany me to a gala. Of course. Get a decent suit." "I don't own a suit," I said honestly. Silence from inside the room for a moment. "One will be delivered tomorrow afternoon." "Thank you, Mrs. Sterling." "And," she hesitated, "I'm sorry about tonight." "It's fine. I understand, Mr. Vance's concern." I replied, my tone polite and distant. "He isn't concerned," she said softly. "He's just a control freak." The door closed. I stood in the hallway for a moment, rubbing my chin. Control freak. An accurate diagnosis. A man who treats you like a prized possession versus a man who offers to finish your ramen. It shouldn't be a hard choice. Of course, that assumes I'm one of the good guys. Spoiler alert, I'm not. Chapter 3. Tonight, you're my date. The next afternoon, the custom suit arrived right on schedule. Ferragamo. It fit like a second skin. In the mirror, I looked the part, polished sharp, every bit the elite professional. Claire looked at me, a flicker of genuine surprise in her eyes. "It fits you perfectly. Thank you for the suit, Mrs. Sterling. Tonight, you are not my bodyguard," she said, her expression serious. "You are my date." I raised an eyebrow. "Does Mr. Vance know about this?" "I don't need to report my every move to him," she said, her voice flat. "Well now, is that the sound of a rebellion starting? I'm here for it." The charity gala was held in the grand ballroom of a 5-star hotel on Central Park South. Gilded ceilings, glittering chandeliers, a sea of New York's rich and powerful. When I walked in with Claire on my arm, we drew nearly every eye in the room. Claire was always the center of attention, but the strange, young, and handsome man by her side. I immediately became the subject of intense speculation. Isn't that Julian Vance's wife? Who's the guy with her? Never seen him before. A cousin from out of town. Cousins don't walk the red carpet arm in arm looking like that. I could feel dozens of stares on us like spotlights. The most intense one, however, came from the center of the room, from Julian Vance himself. He was schmoozing with a few titans of industry, a practiced smile on his face. The moment he saw us, that smile froze and cracked. Ding! Host's infidelity index has skyrocketed. Warning, warning, critical threshold of 20% has been reached. The battle for dignity, mission difficulty has increased. Host must now reassert his masculine pride in an overwhelming fashion tonight. Julian's fists clenched at his sides. Claire, however, acted as if she didn't see him at all, leading me straight to the lavish buffet. "Are you hungry?" she asked. "I'm all right. You should try this. The foie gras here is excellent." She used a pair of tongs to place a piece on my plate. The gesture was intimate. Across the room, Julian looked like he was about to spontaneously combust. But he couldn't approach us. As one of the evening's hosts, he had to maintain his composure. That single piece of goose liver was the final straw on the camel's back. "Mrs. Sterling, is this really a good idea?" I whispered, feigning concern. "Mr. Vance is—" "Don't worry about him," Claire interrupted. "Tonight you're with me. You listen to me." Her tone held a hint of assertive dominance that was a stark contrast to her usual cool exterior. I liked the contrast. Just then, a slick-haired trust fund kid holding a champagne flute swaggered over. It was Chad Becker, one of Julian's sycophants. In the novel, he was the tool designated to execute the humiliate the bodyguard plan. Well, if it isn't Claire. "And who's this?" Chad's eyes raked over me with unconcealed disdain. "A friend of mine, Leo Cross," Claire replied coldly. "A friend?" Chad chuckled knowingly. "Claire, Julian is over there waiting for you. Said he has something important to discuss." The classic move to isolate her. "I'm busy," Claire said, shutting him down. Chad's face tightened. He turned his attention to me, suddenly raising his voice. "This Mr. Cross, I don't recognize the face. Where do you work, buddy?" His loud question immediately drew the attention of everyone nearby. "Here we go. The show's about to start." Before I could speak, Claire stepped in front of me. "Chad, this is none of your business." "Hey, I'm just looking out for you, Claire." Chad put on a mask of false concern. "You know how it is these days. So many con artists out there. Julian loves you so much, you wouldn't want to be fooled by some pretty boy, would you?" He practically shouted the last sentence. The entire ballroom fell silent. All eyes were on us. Julian stood a short distance away, a cold smirk playing on his lips. He was waiting for me to be humiliated, waiting for me to be laughed out of the room. Then he would swoop in like a savior, magnanimously forgive his foolish bodyguard, and lead Claire away, reasserting his absolute authority as the man of the house. It was a good script. Too bad I had no intention of following it. I gently moved Claire aside and stepped up to Chad. I was a good half a foot taller than him. I looked down at him, a pleasant smile on my face. "Mr. Becker, is it? What if it is? You're saying I'm a pretty boy? A gold digger, trying to fool Mrs. Sterling, aren't you?" My smile widened. "Yes," I said, nodding. "I am." Everyone froze. Chad, Claire, even Julian in the distance. No one expected me to just admit it. I looked at the dumbfounded Chad and continued. "And I didn't just fool Mrs. Sterling. I fooled Mr. Vance too. I told him I was a professional bodyguard. The truth is, 3 months ago, I was looking for work on Craigslist. I told him my personal hero was Mother Teresa. The truth is, all I can think about are—" I paused, turning my gaze to Claire, my expression shifting to one of deep, burning desire. Beautiful, elegant women like her. The room erupted in a wave of gasps and murmurs. Claire's face turned scarlet. Not from embarrassment, from shock, anger, and utter disbelief. Chad was completely stunned, pointing a finger at me, sputtering, "You." Across the room, Julian's smirk had vanished, replaced by a mask of stone. The script had gone off the rails. Spectacularly. I took in everyone's shocked expressions, thoroughly satisfied. Then I delivered the final, fatal blow. I stepped closer to Chad, invading his personal space, and whispered, so low that only he could hear, "And I'll let you in on another little secret. I didn't just fool them. A minute ago, when Mrs. Sterling put that foie gras on my plate, her fingers brushed against mine, and I got hard." Chad's eyes bulged as if he'd seen a ghost. Chapter 4. I'm a madman. "Are you?" Chad Becker completely shut down. He stared at me, a cocktail of shock, disgust, and fear warring for control of his face. I ignored him, turning to face the stunned guests. I gave a slight, formal bow. "My apologies for interrupting your evening." Then I walked over to the petrified Claire Sterling and extended my hand. Mrs. Sterling, the music is starting. May I have the honor of this first dance? My voice wasn't loud, but in the dead silent ballroom, it carried to every corner. Claire stared at me as if waking from a nightmare. Her cheeks were burning, her eyes a swirl of confusion. She didn't understand. She couldn't possibly understand why I would do this, why I would detonate our reputations, pushing her into the center of a raging scandal. The whispers had already started to swell around us. Oh my God, he actually admitted it. Is that guy insane? How could Claire be with someone like that? Julian Vance must be absolutely livid. Livid didn't even begin to cover it. Julian's face wasn't green with envy. It was a shade of black that seemed to absorb the light around him. He stared at me, the murderous intent in his eyes so potent it felt like a physical force. Ding! Warning! Host is experiencing emotional overload. Unpredictable consequences may occur. System attempting to engage. Calm down, Aura. Engagement failed. Host current status. Homicidal rage. Excellent. This was exactly what I wanted. Under the collective gaze of New York's high society, Claire remained silent for a long moment. Then, she made a decision that surprised everyone, including me. She gently placed her hand in mine. Yes, she whispered. I smiled. I led her to the center of the dance floor. The orchestra began to play a slow, elegant waltz. I placed a hand on her waist. She rested hers on my shoulder. We were clumsy, awkward. I had no idea how to waltz. Neither did she, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that in that moment, we were the only two people in the center of that vast floor. We had become the main event. A spectacle. A joke. What are you trying to accomplish? She finally asked, her voice trembling slightly. My job, I answered. What job? Protecting you. And this is how you protect me. A hysterical laugh almost escaped her lips. By turning me into the laughingstock of the entire city. Sometimes being the joke is much safer than being the target. I murmured, leaning closer, my lips brushing against her ear. My breath ghosted over her skin. She shivered. I don't understand. You will, I said, guiding her through a clumsy turn. Claire, do you trust me? She didn't answer. The music ended. I led her off the dance floor. As we walked, the crowd parted before us like the Red Sea. Everyone's eyes were filled with a complex mixture of pity, contempt, curiosity, and morbid fascination. We walked straight up to Julian Vance. He stood like a volcano on the verge of eruption, his glare fixed on us. Let go of her, he bit out, each word dripping with venom. I released Claire's hand. Julian, listen to me. I can't explain, Claire began. Crack. The sound of the slap echoed through the silent hall. Julian had hit Claire. Everyone was stunned. In the novel, Julian Vance was the perfect husband who would never lay a finger on his wife. But now, he had shattered his own character profile. Pushed to the brink by rage and the system's negative feedback loop, he had broken his own rules. Claire clutched her cheek, staring at him in disbelief. You hit me? Julian looked at his own hand, as if he couldn't believe what he'd just done either. Ding! Host has assaulted the destined marriage partner. System is experiencing critical bug-related backlash. Penalty. Host divine tier medical skills beginner. Mission has failed. Skill acquisition is now permanently frozen. New penalty. Host's emotional control ability has been revoked for 24 hours. Well, that escalated quickly. I inwardly celebrated, but my face showed only shock and outrage. I stepped forward, shielding Claire behind me, and faced Julian directly. Mr. Vance, a real man doesn't hit a woman. You shut your mouth. Julian jabbed a finger at my face, his voice cracking. This is all your fault, you bastard. I'm going to kill you. He had lost it. With his emotional control disabled by the system, he was nothing more than a beast driven by pure rage. Security! Where is security? Someone yelled. The hotel security team finally rushed over, trying to restrain Julian. But how could a few ordinary guards hold back a man empowered by a supernatural system? He threw them off like rag dolls and swung a fist straight at my face. The punch whistled through the air. I knew I couldn't dodge it. I didn't even try. I closed my eyes. The expected impact never came. Claire had thrown herself in front of me. Julian's fist stopped less than an inch from her face. You'd die for him. Julian's voice trembled. Julian. Claire looked at him, her eyes filled with a coldness and resolve I'd never seen before. I want a divorce. What did you say? I said, we're getting a divorce. Never, he roared. I will never agree to it. It's not up to you. Claire grabbed my hand and turned to leave. Come with me, she commanded. The entire ballroom was plunged into a dead silence, broken only by the sound of Julian's animalistic roar and the garbled, static-filled noises of his system crashing. Warning, at hashtag yin% and marriage link severed, hashtag yin%, destiny value minus 50%, bug, critical bug, system restarting. The show was just getting started. Chapter 5, My Place. Tonight Claire dragged me all the way to the underground parking garage. Her hand was cold, her grip vice-like. Only when we were inside her Maserati did she let go, slumping against the driver's seat as if her bones had turned to liquid. The silence in the car was heavy, oppressive. She didn't speak. I didn't either. I could see her shoulders trembling as she covered her face with her hands. She was crying. I offered her a tissue from the center console. She ignored it, her voice raspy. You knew this would happen, didn't you? Not all of it, I answered. I just knew the volcano would erupt eventually. I didn't expect it to be tonight. You provoked him on purpose. It wasn't a question. Yes. What? Claire, which do you think is more dangerous? A lion sleeping in the shadows, or a raging lion that everyone can see is out of control? She fell silent. It was a simple, brutal truth. An enemy who is calm, calculating, and plotting your demise in secret is the most terrifying kind. An enemy who has been exposed, who has lost his mind in front of the entire world, is just a madman. I had dragged the threat from the darkness into the blinding spotlight. The price was our reputations, especially hers. So you destroyed me. To protect me? Her voice was thick with self-mockery. Yes. Leo, you're insane. Maybe, I said with a small smile. What about you? Why did you jump in front of me back there? She trailed off, unable to find the words. She probably didn't know the answer herself. In that split second, when Julian's fist flew, her body had moved on pure instinct. You don't have to answer, I said. I just want you to know that we're in the same boat now. She turned to look at me, her eyes glistening with tears. Where are we going? I don't know. I don't want to go home. Then we won't. She started the car and began to drive aimlessly through the glittering, indifferent city. The car stereo was playing an old Karen Carpenter song, Yesterday Once More. The tense atmosphere slowly began to soften. After what felt like an hour, she pulled into the underground garage of a luxury high-rise in Soho. This is another apartment I own. He doesn't know about it, she said. Looks like you were already prepared. You could say that. She gave a small, bitter laugh. A woman should always have an escape plan. We rode the elevator up in silence. In the confined space, the atmosphere became charged again. I could smell the faint, intoxicating scent on her, a mix of expensive perfume, wine, and a trace of sorrow. The apartment was a duplex penthouse, decorated in a minimalist, cool-tone style that matched her perfectly. It was beautiful, but it lacked the feeling of a home. You can stay here tonight, she said. The guest room is on the second floor. All right. She kicked off her heels and walked barefoot to the wet bar, pouring herself a glass of red wine. Want some? She asked, holding up the glass. I don't drink. Why not? It leads to bad decisions, I said, especially when you're alone with a beautiful, emotionally vulnerable woman who just fled her abusive husband. Alcohol was a catalyst for very bad or very good decisions. She looked at me and suddenly smiled. Leo, you really are an interesting person. Interesting is usually what people say when they can't think of any other compliments. No, you're genuinely interesting, she insisted, swirling the deep red liquid in her glass. You do the most insane things, but you have this aura of perfect calm and rationality. She walked over to me, bringing the glass to my lips. Have a sip, as in, apology for my behavior. The wine was the color of blood in the dim light. It looked like a poison I'd be happy to drink. I looked into her eyes. They held curiosity, pain, and something else I couldn't quite decipher. The air between us grew thick, heavy. I opened my mouth and took a sip. It was smooth, but with a fiery kick. She smiled, satisfied. Then, She leaned in and took a delicate sip from the exact spot on the rim my lips had just touched. It was an intensely intimate act, an indirect kiss. My Adam's apple bobbed. "You should get some rest," she said softly. "Tomorrow is going to be a long day." She turned and went upstairs. I stood alone in the vast living room, feeling the warm buzz of the alcohol. She was right. Julian wouldn't give up this easily. A cornered protagonist, stripped of his dignity and about to lose his system, was capable of anything. I needed to be ready. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. "Yo, it's me." A sleepy voice answered from the other end. "Dude, do you have any idea what time it is?" "Cut the crap. I need you to run a name for me," I said. "Who?" "Julian Vance, CEO of Apex Corporation." "What for? Who did you piss off this time?" "No," I said with a thin smile. "I'm the one he's about to piss off." Chapter 6. A Gift He Can't Refuse. The next morning, I was woken by a knock on my door. It was Claire. She was in a simple gray sweatsuit, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, her face free of makeup. She was still stunning. "For you." She handed me a large manila envelope. "What's this?" "Everything you need to know about Julian Vance," she said. "And some of Apex Corporation's little secrets." I took the envelope, looking at her with genuine surprise. "I told you, a woman should always have an escape plan." She cut me off, her tone even. "I've been collecting this for the past 2 years. I never intended to use it, but now seems like the right time." I opened the envelope. It was stuffed with documents and a few USB drives. I skimmed the first few pages. Tax evasion, insider trading, hostile takeovers through illegal means. Each file contained enough evidence to bury Julian and his company. "You wanted to leave him for a long time?" I asked. "Not exactly." She shook her head. I don't like being kept in a gilded cage. At first, this was just for self-preservation, leverage, so I could have a conversation with him as an equal. But he never gave you that chance." "No." It was the classic protagonist mindset. "I built this beautiful prison for you. You should be grateful. How dare you ask for freedom?" "What's your plan?" She asked me. "Give him a taste of his own medicine," I said. "Last night, Julian tried to ruin my reputation at a party. Today, I was going to give him a taste of social and financial death in front of the entire world." A strange light shone in Claire's eyes as she watched me. "What do you need me to do?" "Just stay here and watch the show." I tucked the envelope under my arm. "By the way, mind if I borrow your kitchen again?" She blinked, then a real smile broke through. "What are you in the mood for?" "Grilled cheese and tomato soup." At 10 a.m., Apex Corporation convened an emergency board meeting. The atmosphere in the conference room was grim. Julian sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of thunderous rage. Overnight, the scandal from the gala had spread like wildfire through the city's elite circles. Claire Sterling's affair, Julian Vance's domestic abuse. Apex stock had plummeted 5% the moment the market opened. "Julian, this incident has done catastrophic damage to the company's image. You owe the shareholders an explanation." One of the older board members, a man with a comb-over, slammed his hand on the table. "An explanation? I don't owe any of you an explanation for my personal life." Julian roared. His emotional control was gone. He was a walking powder keg. "Personal life. Julian, Apex isn't your personal kingdom. Your personal life just vaporized over $1 billion in market value. Who's going to cover that loss?" "All of you shut up." Just as the argument reached its peak, the conference room doors opened. A woman in a sharp power suit and gold-rimmed glasses walked in, flanked by 2 lawyers. "Pardon the interruption, gentlemen," the woman said with a polite smile. "My name is Jessica Finch. I'm a managing partner at Sterling Public Relations." Everyone stared, stunned into silence. Our firm received an anonymous commission, along with some very interesting materials. Jessica plugged a USB drive into the room's presentation system. The massive screen behind the board table lit up, displaying detailed records of Apex Corporation's tax evasion schemes for the past 3 years. The room fell deathly silent. The man with the comb-over's mouth hung open wide enough to catch flies. Julian's face went bone white. Where did you get this?" He snarled, glaring at Jessica. "As I said, an anonymous client." Jessica smiled coolly. "My client wished for me to deliver this gift to you, Mr. Vance. and to the members of the board on this fine morning. There's more. Jessica clicked the remote. A video began to play. It was a complete evidence chain, including hidden camera footage of Apex using illegal tactics to drive the founder of a smaller tech company to suicide during a hostile takeover. Julian's arrogant, sneering face was perfectly clear in the video. The conference room exploded. Vance, are you insane? This is a federal crime. We could go to prison. You've ruined us all. Julian stared blankly at the screen, a cold dread seeping in his bones. He knew it was over. Ding! Host's career trajectory has suffered a catastrophic blow. Destiny value minus 30%. System energy levels critically low. Initiating emergency hibernation protocol. Hibernation commencing in 10, 9, 8. The system's voice in his head grew faint, distorted. For the first time, raw, genuine fear appeared in Julian Vance's eyes. He wasn't just losing his company, his wealth, his reputation. He was losing his greatest weapon. At that same moment, in the Soho penthouse, Claire and I were sitting at her dining table. On the table were 2 bowls of creamy tomato soup and a plate of perfectly grilled cheese sandwiches. The news was on the large TV on the wall, showing live footage of the chaotic emergency press conference at Apex Tower. Watching the broken, hollowed-out version of Julian Vance on the screen, Claire was silent for a long time. "Do you regret it?" I asked. "No," she shook her head. "It just feels unreal." The man who had once seemed so invincible, so radiant and powerful in her world, had fallen so easily. "You should eat," I said. "It'll get cold." She picked up her spoon and silently began to eat. As she ate, tears began to fall one by one into her soup. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of release. I didn't try to comfort her. I just sat with her in the quiet. I knew that starting today, the gilded cage was broken and the canary inside was finally free. A new woman was taking her place, independent, strong, and ready to fly. And I was starting to realize I was falling for her. Chapter 7. Professional Clarity. The next few days were quiet. Julian Vance was buried in legal and financial troubles, too busy to bother us. The IRS and the SEC had launched a joint investigation into Apex Corporation. His once mighty empire was crumbling. Claire and I settled into a strange kind of domesticity. It was less like living together and more like being roommates. I had the guest room. She had the master suite. My days consisted of grocery shopping, cooking, and being on 24/7 standby. She, on the other hand, began the formal divorce proceedings. She also started taking a more active role in her own family's business empire, which had taken a hit from a scandal. She became busy, swapping her casual clothes for power suits and heels, leaving early and coming home late. The cool, distant woman was being replaced by a sharp, capable executive. One evening, she came home late from a business dinner, clearly having had too much to drink. I helped her into the apartment, her body leaning heavily against mine. "Leo," she murmured, her eyes hazy, her cheeks flushed. "Yeah. Why? Why are you so good to me?" "I'm your bodyguard," I said, guiding her toward the sofa. "Protecting you is my job. And the cooking, and talking to me, is that part of the job description too? Value-added services." She giggled, a sly, fox-like smile spreading across her face. She reached up, hooking her arms around my neck, and pressed her body against mine. She was warm, soft, and smelled intoxicatingly of wine and her own unique scent. I could feel the gentle curves of her body, the warmth of her breath against my neck. My throat went dry. "Leo," she whispered my name into my ear, her voice pure temptation. "Claire." I placed my hands on her shoulders, gently creating a small space between us. "You're drunk." My own voice was rough around the edges. "I'm not drunk," she insisted, her gaze unwavering. "I'm perfectly clear. I know exactly what I'm doing." She leaned in again. This time, her target was my lips. I didn't move. Just as our lips were about to touch, I turned my head slightly. Her kiss landed on my cheek. Her body went rigid. So did mine. The air crackled and froze around us. After what felt like a lifetime, she pulled back as if she'd been electrocuted, collapsing onto the sofa. She kept her head down, her hair falling like a curtain, hiding her expression. The awkwardness was suffocating. I touched my cheek where she'd kissed me. I could still feel the soft, burning imprint of her lips. Sorry, I said, breaking the silence. I'm the one who should be sorry, she interrupted, her voice small. I crossed the line. You didn't. Claire. I looked at her, my voice serious. Until I've completely dealt with the threat from Julian, I can't get involved with you in any way that goes beyond our professional relationship. She looked up sharply, her eyes wide with shock. It's a matter of professional clarity. I said it with a straight face, but the pun on her name hung in the air between us. Claire stared at me for a second, her brain processing the word. Then a furious blush spread from her cheeks all the way down her neck. She understood the terrible, cheesy joke. She grabbed a throw pillow and hurled it at my face. You're a pig. But there was no real anger in her voice. It sounded more like a playful complaint. I caught the pillow and smiled. Get some rest, Ms. Sterling. I turned and went upstairs, leaving her on the sofa, hugging her knees, her face still burning. Back in my room, I leaned against the door and let out a long, slow breath. That was close. I had almost lost control. I had to admit it. Claire Sterling had a fatal hold on me. But I couldn't act on it. Not yet. Julian was a wounded, rabid dog. Until he was completely out of the picture, any lapse in my focus could get us both killed. My job wasn't just to protect her body. It was to protect her future. That was a true professional's responsibility. Chapter 8. The Final Madness. Julian Vance was more resilient than I'd anticipated. Or maybe the dregs of the system's power were more potent than I'd thought. Even cornered and disgraced, he hadn't completely collapsed. He liquidated his personal assets, mortgaged everything he had left, and even dipped into some very shady offshore accounts to stabilize Apex Corporation's free-falling stock. But it was a hollow victory. The company was now an empty shell, and he had devolved from a chosen one into a red-eyed, debt-ridden gambler. He started trying to contact me. Calls, texts. All of them were a toxic cocktail of threats, curses, and hysterical accusations. Leo, you piece of scum. I'm going to bury you. Give me back Claire. She's not for trash like you. I know where you're hiding. Watch your back. I forwarded every message to the police as evidence of harassment and threats. Meanwhile, the divorce was hitting a wall. Julian refused to sign the papers. He was stalling, delaying, using every dirty legal trick in the book to keep her tied to him. Then, I got a call from an unexpected source. It was Chad Becker, the trust fund sycophant I'd terrified at the gala. Leo. His voice was shaking. What is it? Julian, I think he's gone completely insane, Chad stammered. He came to me last night, asked to borrow $100 million. I was too scared to say no. And this morning, he's gone. Vanished. And so has a shipment of military-grade explosives he bought on the black market. A cold dread washed over me. Explosives? Why, yes. He said he was going to throw a big party. Make all the people who betrayed him pay the price. I knew immediately that we were in serious trouble. Julian was planning to go out in a blaze of glory and take everyone down with him. Where would he go? I don't know, Leo. The guy's a lunatic. He's not listening to anyone. I hung up and stormed into Claire's home office. She was in the middle of a video conference. Meeting's over. I shut her laptop. Pack a bag. We have to go. Now. Claire was stunned. What's wrong? Julian's lost his mind. He has explosives, and he's probably coming for us. The color drained from Claire's face. It wasn't fear. It was a profound shock that the man she once married, a man once so proud, could fall so far. We have to call the police. No time, I said. We need to be gone before he finds us. We threw essentials into 2 suitcases with frantic speed. Just as we were about to head for the door, my phone rang. A blocked number. I answered it. Julian's hoarse, unhinged laughter crackled through the speaker. Leo, thinking of running. Too late. I'm already on my way. You gave me such a wonderful gift. I thought I should prepare one for you in return. Guess what it is? Fireworks. Lighting up the sky. My pupils constricted. What are you talking about? You'll see soon enough. Enjoy the show with your precious Claire. It's my final blessing to you both. The line went dead. I bolted to the window and looked down at the street below. At the entrance to the complex, a black cargo van was speeding maniacally toward our building. Behind the wheel, I could see Julian's twisted, contorted face. His eyes were bloodshot, consumed by madness. Get down. I lunged across the room, tackling Claire and shielding her with my body. Boom! A deafening explosion rocked the very foundations of the building. The world dissolved into a cataclysm of sound and force. The entire skyscraper shuddered. The initial blast triggered a chain reaction. Fire, thick black smoke, the sound of screaming. It was the end of the world. Julian had detonated the explosives in the van. He was going to destroy everything. Smoke and dust filled my lungs, choking me. I held Claire tightly beneath me, shouting over the roar. Are you okay? I'm okay. She yelled back, her voice choked with tears. Chunks of the ceiling began to rain down. I knew we had to get out now. I pulled at her feet and ran for the door. But the frame had been warped by the blast. It was jammed shut. Our only way out was blocked. For the first time, I saw true despair on Claire's face. Are we going to die in here? I looked at her, wiping a smudge of soot from her cheek. Then I smiled. No, I said, because your bodyguard is a professional. I pulled her toward the massive, floor-to-ceiling window in the master bedroom. We were on the 28th floor. A jump from here was a death sentence. What were you doing? She asked, her voice trembling with terror. I didn't answer. Instead, I pointed to the rooftop of the adjacent skyscraper. See that swimming pool? There was a gap of at least 100 feet between the two buildings. You're crazy. That's impossible. Trust me. With those words, I picked up a heavy chair and shattered the reinforced glass. A howling wind ripped through the room. I tore off my suit jacket, ripping it into strips and using them to tie her wrists securely to mine. Hold on to me, I commanded. Tight. She wrapped her arms around my neck like a terrified child, her body shaking uncontrollably. I took a deep breath, staring at our target across the chasm. Then, with the inferno raging behind us, I held her close and leaped into the abyss. Chapter 9. Sorry, I'm a deep cover agent. The wind screamed in my ears. The stomach-lurching feeling of freefall made my soul feel like it was trying to escape my body. Claire was screaming, her eyes squeezed shut. 100-foot gap. An impossible leap for any human. But who said I was human? Just as gravity took full hold, as our trajectory was about to arc us down into a messy splatter on the pavement below, I gave a silent command. Activate anti-logic protocol. A new skill engaged, Newton's nightmare. For a few brief seconds, the laws of physics in our immediate vicinity would become suggestions. An invisible force cushioned our fall, transforming our downward momentum into a powerful horizontal thrust. It was like swinging on a cosmic swing set and letting go at the very peak. Splash! We landed with pinpoint accuracy in the rooftop infinity pool of the opposite building. A massive plume of water erupted around us. The cold shock of the water was a baptism. We were safe. I dragged a dazed and sputtering Claire out of the water. She lay on the deck, gasping for air, staring back at our burning apartment with a look of utter, disbelieving shock. How did you? I told you. I'm a professional, I said, wiping the water from my face and offering her a grin. In the distance, the sirens grew louder. The first responders were arriving. I watched the smoke and flames consume our former safe house without a shred of emotion. Julian Vance, the protagonist, had ended his story in the most tragic way possible. And me, the cannon fodder, had survived. The police quickly secured the scene. As the only two survivors from the epicenter of the blast, Claire and I were taken in for questioning. We obviously couldn't tell them the truth. We were trapped, and we saw a window-washing crane outside. I explained. We climbed onto it and swung over. It was a flimsy excuse full of holes. But in the chaos, no one was going to question the story of two traumatized survivors too closely. By the time we finished our statements, it was early the next morning. We were met outside the precinct by an unexpected figure. Claire's father, Robert Sterling, a man in his late 50s, but with an aura of power that hadn't faded with age. In the original novel, he was the hidden final boss. He took in Claire's disheveled state. Then his gaze shifted to me. He said nothing, simply motioned for us to get in his car. The ride was tense and silent. Claire kept her head down like a guilty child. Dad, we'll talk at home. Robert Sterling cut her off. Back at the Sterling family mansion, he led us into his mahogany-paneled study. "You," he pointed at me. "Wait outside." I nodded and turned to leave. "Dad, it's not his fault. It was all me. Let him stay." Robert Sterling suddenly changed his mind. His gaze, sharp as a hawk's, locked onto me. "I have a few questions for this Mr. Cross." Claire looked at me with worry. I gave her a reassuring glance. The final boss battle was here. Robert Sterling sat in a large leather armchair, steepling his fingers as he scrutinized me. "Who are you?" he asked, getting straight to the point. "Leo Cross. A bodyguard. Is that so?" He scoffed. "Can an ordinary bodyguard leap from the 28th floor to the roof of an adjacent building? I'm lucky. Can an ordinary bodyguard predict a madman's suicide attack? Good instincts. And can an ordinary bodyguard charm my daughter so completely that she's willing to divorce her husband and throw herself in front of a punch for him?" I remained silent. Claire nervously gripped the sleeve of my shirt. Robert Sterling stared into my eyes, his voice low and dangerous. "You're no bodyguard. What is your real motive for getting close to my daughter?" The study was deathly quiet. I looked at him, knowing the charade was over. I let out a long sigh. "All right, you got me." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a wallet, flipping it open to reveal an official-looking ID card. "Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Leo Cross. I'm a field agent with the Department of Domestic Security, Division 9. My mission was to investigate the potential national security threat posed by the subject Julian Vance, a recipient of an anomalous empowerment event we call the Protagonist System. Getting close to your daughter was a necessary part of that mission." I turned to the utterly dumbfounded Claire, my face a mask of regret. "I'm sorry, Claire. I'm a deep cover agent." Chapter 10. Her bodyguard. My man Claire was speechless. Robert Sterling was stunned. This plot twist was clearly far beyond anything they could have imagined. A secret government agency? A special division? What was happening? My bona fide bullshit skill was now fully engaged, making everything I said sound deeply plausible and deadly serious. I looked at Robert Sterling, my expression grave. "Mr. Sterling, the existence of these systems is beyond the scope of conventional science. We have reason to believe they are connected to extra-governmental, perhaps even non-terrestrial, entities. They represent a clear and present danger to national security. Julian Vance's rampage is proof. An ordinary man, given this power, can cause immense destruction. If more of these protagonists appear, the consequences could be catastrophic. Our division's purpose is to monitor, control, or, if necessary, neutralize these individuals before they can cause irreparable harm." My speech was a carefully crafted mix of truth and fiction, paired with my somber, for my country expression and the flawlessly forged ID. My credibility was off the charts. Robert Sterling was a man who had seen almost everything. He took a long time to process this flood of information. "Is your mission complete?" he finally asked. "Yes. The subject has been neutralized. His system was recovered from the blast site by our cleanup team." I lied, not missing a beat. "And what about my daughter?" Robert's gaze fell on Claire. This was the critical question. Now that the mission was over, was the deep cover agent supposed to disappear into the shadows? I looked at Claire. She was looking back at me, her eyes a storm of conflicting emotions. There was anger at the deception, relief at the truth, but most of all, there was a palpable fear of loss. Before I could answer, Claire spoke. She stepped to my side, linked her arm through mine, and lifted her chin to face her father. "Dad, his mission might be over, but his other job isn't." Robert Sterling raised an eyebrow. "What job is that?" "My bodyguard," Claire said, each word clear and firm. "For life." Her father's eyes darted between the two of us. "You're sure about this?" "I'm sure. You don't mind that his initial reason for getting close to you is a lie?" "I don't mind." Claire turned to me, a radiant smile breaking across her face, a smile I had never seen before. "Because his mission was for the country. But his heart is mine." Damn, she not only bought my lie, she reinforced it. Perfectly. Robert Sterling stared at us for a long, heavy moment. Finally, he let out a deep sigh. "You're all grown up." He waved a dismissive hand. "Fine. Your lives are your own to figure out. Just don't forget to bring me a grandchild in a year or two." Claire's face instantly turned a shade of crimson. Leaving the Sterling mansion, We sat in Claire's car, neither of us speaking. She drove for several blocks before pulling over to the curb, shutting off the engine, and turning to glare at me. Division 9. Yep. Agent Cross. Present. Mission's over. Aren't you due back at HQ? Reporting, ma'am. I'd like to formally request a permanent assignment. Protecting this asset, I replied with military seriousness. She burst out laughing. Then, she playfully punched me in the chest. Liar. The tap was soft, affectionate. You're a huge liar. She hit me again. I caught her hand, gently pulling her into my arms. I'm sorry, I said. This time I meant it. She rested her head against my chest, her voice muffled. I don't care if you're a secret agent or what mission you're on. From now on, you work for me. The salary is the same, $20,000 a month, but the value-added services are going to cost you extra. I tilted her chin up to look at her. What's the price? A lifetime. I smiled. I leaned down and kissed her. This time, she didn't hesitate. Neither did I. The sun streamed through the car window, warm and bright. Just as the kiss deepened, my stomach let out a loud, traitorous growl. The sound was deafening in the quiet car. Claire pulled back, a giggle bubbling up. She wiped a smudge of her lipstick from my mouth with her thumb. So, Agent Cross, what would you like to eat? I thought for a moment, then answered with the utmost seriousness. Grilled cheese and tomato soup.